All right. All right. I'm back. I'm back. I know it's been a couple of days. I haven't been able to hop on the live stream, but here we are. And now that we are back, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the news, in the media, and we're going to talk about it, right? I want to talk about this thing that happened over in Minnesota. Everybody is probably tracking. If you're not tracking, the issue is a woman was executed by an ICE agent as she tried to pull off in her vehicle. A lot of controversy about it. People on the right are saying that some people on the right, of course, like media pundits and people in the Trump administration, they're saying it was a good shooting from the ICE agent. I looked at the video multiple times. I don't think that it is, but a court will decide, right? We're going to talk about Tim Walz in this coverage that we're doing in Minnesota. We're going to talk about Tim Walz. He said that he was not going to run for a third term as governor. So we're going to briefly talk about that and into a CNN and get into a Fox News panel about Minnesota as well. Then I want to talk about Greenland, right? Trump, he's going on a crusade, man. He wants Venezuela. He wants Greenland. He wants probably Cuba and Nicaragua and all these different places. But right now he's targeting Greenland. They're a NATO ally. And I don't know if that's going to shape up to be a good idea for us. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to get into that story. I'm going to give you guys my opinion on it, a more thorough opinion. Then it's not going to be good for us. And then we're going to talk about New York. New York the governor over there has decided that she is going to take up one of Mamdani's ideas, right? She's going to fund preschool. I believe it's for 2-year-olds. I think it's for babies to 2 years old. She's going to fund preschool. A lot of people said that Mamdani had these pie in the sky dreams. He was never going to get anything passed. He was never going to be able to work with Governor Hochul, and she wasn't going to hop on board with funding some of his ideas. Well, it looks like they have some pie on their face because early into his governing, right, he's already hitting apartments. He's already helping pave roads and fix the roads, and he's getting some of his agenda passed. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about that. And I think that the story is a little bigger than just, preschool is getting funded. Anyway, let's hop into this thing that's going over in Minnesota. So the story goes like this. You have all of these stories about fraud that's happening in Minnesota, some of it legitimate, right? There are absolutely people that are in Minneapolis that are doing fraud, that have been caught, that have been indicted, and they're probably going to go to jail, right? 100% there is fraud happening. Nick Shirley, he does this expose. He says, I went to all of these Somali businesses and there's fraud happening. It's rampant. I found $110 million worth of fraud in 12 hours. I call bullshit, right? If he did, then that would be phenomenal investigative journalism. But just because you went and you saw a local that said that there was fraud, you filmed these businesses after hours or whatever the situation may be, doesn't mean that there's legitimate fraud, right? But because of his expose, it shined an even brighter light on Minnesota and Minneapolis in particular. So what was the response? The Trump administration has been looking for a community to point at as doing waste, fraud, and abuse so that people could take their eyes off of the shit that Trump legitimately does, right? Pardoning all sorts of people, canceling their restitution, commuting their sentences, tearing down the east wing of the White House to build a $4 million ballroom, right? So he could host the inauguration away from the American public. All of the stuff that the Trump administration is doing, they want to keep the public out of that and focus on this community that they accuse of doing fraud. So they ramp up investigations over in Minneapolis, which I'm fine with, right? You can investigate, audit, find out what's going on. But they also ramp up ICE deportations over in Minnesota and Minneapolis. This leads to a woman having a confrontation with ICE agents, and they end up executing her on the spot. They say that she was trying to run over an officer. She gets in her car. There's one guy kind of pulling on the door or reaching in. There's another guy kind of towards the front of the vehicle. She backs up, starts to go forward to turn out, right? She turns her wheels to the right. The officer sidesteps the vehicle, executes her, right? She crashes a couple feet down the road. And I believe she was pronounced dead at the hospital. So she did survive the gunshot wound, but ended up succumbing to the injuries. Well, unfortunately, people are bringing politics into the situation. If they're agreeing with the right or they're agreeing with ICE agents and their mission, they're trying to say, oh, well, this was a justified shooting. She should have never drove off. She should have never drove off. But that doesn't give the ICE agent justification to execute her in the car. Based on the space that he was in when he fired the first shot, I would say that his life and his fellow officers' life, the ICE agents, it wasn't in any imminent danger whatsoever, point blank, period. And that has to be the legal barrier for if this was justified or unjustified. Was anybody in immediate life-threatening danger? No, not when he fired the shots. And it's been reported that he fired 3 of them into her face. All right. So that's what's going on. Let's look at some of the responses. So we have a panel over on, not a panel, we have a gentleman over on CNN. His name is John Miller. He responds to this situation. Let's take a look.
We did this in New York in 1994, 95. We changed it in LAPD when I was there in 2004. But it's basically simple, which is if you're confronted by a moving vehicle that could be a threat to you, get out of the way of the vehicle and don't shoot at a car. Now, this is DHS policy. I'm reading to you from DHS policy. DHS law enforcement officers are prohibited from discharging firearms at the operator of a moving vehicle or other conveyance unless the use of deadly force of the, basically it says, unless it's...
This appears to be black and white.
Well, it does. And it also says a law enforcement officer must take into consideration the hazards that may be posed to law enforcement and innocent bystanders by an out-of-control vehicle, which we just saw the result of that. The point is, unless the person is literally either using the vehicle to ram other people in a terrorist attack, or has a car bomb, or is chasing you with the vehicle in particular, getting out of the way and reducing the tactical exigency where you're not creating a situation where you're forced to fire these shots is what most law enforcement agencies have adopted.
And very clear that that's what was.
And that's obviously, if you watch the video, which I'm not going to play it on the channel, if you've been around, I've said ad nauseum. I've said multiple times, I always say ad nauseum. I don't like looking at stuff like that, right? Back in the day when World Star was big, I never watched the World Star videos, the fight compilations that they used to do. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, unfortunately, that was sent to me in a text message, and I didn't know what it was when I looked at it, right? I thought that it was AI for the first 3 times that I watched it. So I won't be playing that video here. I'm not into showing that type of content, but it's all over Twitter if you have not seen it. But very black and white, this CNN panel discusses, hey, there's no imminent threat, right? This is not my opinion. This is not their opinion. It's clear as day on the vehicle. When the guy fires a shot, he's standing at the driver's side towards like the, he's on, you know, the front. He's not in front of the vehicle. He's towards the front of the vehicle. And those distinctions make a world of difference, because if I'm attempting to ram you with my car, that puts you in imminent and immediate danger. That puts bystanders or other agents in imminent and immediate danger. But if I back up, turn my wheels, and I'm exiting the space, and you are towards the front of the vehicle, but not in front of the vehicle, it makes all the world of difference. And, you know, because politics is so polarizing, the people on CNN, sometimes they are with the bullshit too, and they're going to lie to make their side seem like they're in the right, like, or on the correct side. But in this instance, the video is black and white. The situation is black and white. The documentation for DHS procedures to handle that type of situation is black and white. But Fox News, they don't see it that way. So they start doing a panel, and I haven't watched this video. I just saw the title, and I thought I'd bring it to the channel, but the title is Governor Walz Ready to Deploy National Guard as Anti-ICE Protests Rage. So the mayor of Minneapolis, he told ICE agents point blank period, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of my city. We don't need you, right? Very strong language. It's not typically how we hear politicians talk, but a lot of people are vehemently opposing what ICE is doing. And they don't like the escalated deportations. They don't like the heavy hand that ICE is using, right? And this lady, as it's been reported, she wasn't even a target of like an ICE detention or whatever situation she was in that predated her being shot, had nothing to do with ICE looking for her or about to arrest her or was looking to detain her. She just happened to get herself involved, right? She's a citizen. She can protest. That's well within her right. Whatever the situation escalated, she is 100% wrong for fleeing. And that is an arrestable offense. She could have been booked. She could have been charged, but she should not have been executed. And Fox News trying to misunderstand that situation is part of the reason why we have such polarizing politics. Let's check out their reporting on Governor Walz amplifying this situation and basically attempting to deploy the National Guard. I'm going to tell you before they say anything, I think it's a bad idea. I think that, there was a time when Trump wanted to deploy the National Guard, saying that there was all types of crime and violent crime happening in all of these blue cities. And I thought that was a mistake. I don't like the idea of the military standing on opposite sides of the population, right? Of the citizens that they are employed to protect. And I also don't like this idea of the National Guard or the military standing on opposite sides of the federal government. I think that it sets a bad precedent for, hey, is the governor going to have his own quote unquote army that's going to stand up against the federal government? Like, what is the end game here? Are we looking for an instance where ICE is doing one thing and the National Guard is opposing them, and do tensions escalate? So I think it's a bad idea to deploy the National Guard on Tim Walz's behalf. But let's listen to this Fox News panel. Let's see if they're reasonable about this, because as we know, Fox News is paid to push a narrative. They're a big media corporation. They are paid to say things that put their side in the right light. Here we go. Roll the clip.
Live to Minneapolis, there's a protester and counter-protesters are scuffling outside a federal building after yesterday's deadly ICE-involved shooting. Governor Tim Walz says the state's National Guard is ready to deploy if there is civil unrest. He and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey are telling ICE to go home.
We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here.
Former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty is here with us. And Governor, can you maybe give us your take on the breaking news this morning?
One thing I am interested in is what level of arrests of illegal immigrants or what type of detentions are happening that were already done by like the local law enforcement, right? As opposed to them bringing in ICE. I believe it was an additional 2,100 ICE agents across Minnesota that they brought in. I don't know that that's necessary, but I am interested in the amount of arrests that were already happening just by the state's law enforcement or the local law enforcement in the city versus what ICE was trying to ramp up to do. Because apparently they thought that whatever was happening was so rampant that they needed to deploy more than 2,000 federal agents. So,
and this overall, the feeling that Minneapolis is not a happy place this week.
Yeah. It is another sad and tragic day for Minneapolis and for my state of Minnesota. Of course, on a human level, our hearts go out to the family of this woman who was shot. And of course, the political fallout and legal fallout from this is going to unfold. But I'm disappointed that some certain leaders made big, bold legal conclusions with very little evidence. And I think it's fair to let this investigation unfold. And by the way, your impression of this, I think depends on what video you're looking at, and we can go into that more. But if you only look at one video, you might have one conclusion. If you look at all of them, you might have a very different conclusion.
No, I think that's some bullshit. I looked at two videos, one from a more rear view, and I believe it was one from a more front view, or at least a different angle. And I came to the same conclusion that it's a bad shooting. The gentleman was not in front of the car; he was towards the front of the car. So I don't know. Until I see a contradictory video, which I'm not going to go search for, that's going to be my synopsis of this situation.
What is your sense of the ICE operations there? Todd Lyons, who is the acting ICE director, he was just on with us about 25 minutes ago, and he said ICE has been there for decades, but in recent weeks they have been there, and it's not been a problem up to now.
Right, and Minnesota does need the help of the federal government. ICE has a legal obligation to perform its duties, and the fact that they can't do them without people assaulting them or obstructing their process is really unfortunate. They need local partners who will help that, not hinder it. And of course, Minneapolis and Minnesota, unfortunately, is a sanctuary state. It's a sanctuary city in Minneapolis, and they won't protect or facilitate ICE in an orderly way. So it turns into the kind of chaos that you have.
There's many.
If the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of Minnesota is telling you that they don't want or need ICE, then how are you going to make the decision or the judgment that they do, right? I know that on the Trump administration, they want to deploy these federal agents, and especially into blue cities. They want to antagonize the mayors, the governors, and do like a show of force. You remember, Trump said early into his administration, when they started talking about deploying these agents into these cities, he said, we're going to use them as training grounds. And unfortunately, we're starting to see what he was talking about, right? They are literally being like occupied territories, essentially, within these cities. We see the stuff that's happening. So I just don't understand how one gentleman can try to make a judgment call and say, oh, well, federal agents are needed. The mayor is telling you they're not. The governor is telling you they're not. But of course, the numbers matter. At least they matter to Trump. So he's not satisfied with the numbers. He thinks there's a rampant amount of fraud going on, and he's going to do a show of force to get to the bottom of it.
Agents on the scene now. Our reporters are on the scene, as we just saw during the commercial break. There's a lot of reporters there as well, and now there are counter protesters. We'll keep an eye on that. But I also wanted to ask you about the other big news out of Minneapolis, and this is actually big.
I don't like that she's like, oh, they're counter protesters, as if they're being unreasonable about their fellow citizen and neighbor being shot. It's not unreasonable, and they're well within their rights to go out there and protest and demonstrate against what happened to their neighbor. 100%.
Going on for years, but getting increased media attention in recent days. This is the fact that there has been incredible amounts of fraud in Minneapolis. It's being brought to light. Here is a
legitimate fraud. There is some.
State legislature saying that there's concern about whistleblowers who are trying to raise their hand to say that there was fraud.
Instead of focusing on fraudsters, DHS leadership instead focused its surveillance on employees. Since then, their expressed fear of retaliation has intensified under an avalanche of fraud in Minnesota. So today, if someone asks me, should I report fraud within DHS, I say no, no, no. It is career suicide.
I know you're a former governor, but if you could put that hat back on, what would you want to see happen in this investigation? You have Governor Tim Walz, who's saying he's not going to run again, saying that this is all political.
Boy, it's just simple.
It's obviously political, because Trump is not deploying the National Guard into blue states. And the increased presence from the agents, whether it be the FBI, the DOJ looking into Minneapolis, and these additional federal agents, it came right after Nick Shirley's expose, right? Nick Shirley does the expose. It gets, I think at the time that I did my video, it was like 115 million views just on X. So they're looking for a community to denigrate. The Somali community just fit the bill based on the recent headlines, whether it be the past fraud or Nick Shirley's video. And of course, if there is fraud, I'm gonna say this again, because I get people that are stupid down in my fucking comments telling me, oh, well, you must love fraud. why would I've been a victim of being scammed, right? Why would I want tax dollars either for myself or from the people of Minnesota going towards fraud? You must be fucking stupid. Obviously, I don't want that. What I do want is legitimate investigations from law enforcement agents, not heavy-handed just because, they're trying to denigrate this community that's had a spotlight on them for other people doing past fraud, legitimate past fraud that they've been arrested for, indicted for, they're going to go to jail for, right? Do the investigation because it's the right thing to do, not because it aligns with the people that Trump wants to put his thumb on, right? There's plenty of people that Trump has given an absolute pass to. 1,600 people in his first year in this second term, right? Plenty of people to investigate if you want to legitimately investigate crime. That doesn't seem to be the case.
Not, Dana. It goes all the way back years. And of course, there are nonpartisan legislative auditor reports, other reports that came out signaling there's a problem with financial controls, warning about the potential for fraud or actual fraud. You had whistleblowers.
I'm actually going to go ahead and skip this. I want to show you guys Nick Shirley. Again, this is Nick Shirley. This is the young man. I believe he's about 23. You know what's funny? I showed a video the other day of Adam Mockler. Adam Mockler is also about 23 or 24. And listen to Nick Shirley with the two brain cells that he can rub together that are creating no electrical sparks at all. Here we go. This is him being interviewed by Sean Ryan.
They came after me. They came after my family. They doxed my entire family.
How did they come after you? Be specific.
Well, they tried to come after me. They tried to debunk all my whole entire story. They then...
Who's they?
All the news.
Would you just get more
CNN,
specific? CNN. Who within CNN?
CBS.
Who's the reporter?
I don't even know her name because she's irrelevant. Nobody knows who she is.
They tried to come after him by debunking his story. This is the gentleman that they relied on in order to do this deployment over in Minneapolis. And the chips fell where they fell, right? This lady, she's been executed. It's a tragedy. But this all started because of Nick Shirley's expose. He went out there with a local gentleman named David that had a binder full of notes and just started accusing businesses of fraud. Maybe some of those are legitimate fraud cases that need to be investigated. Maybe those people need to go to jail that are doing legitimate fraud. But I don't believe that y'all uncovered $110 million worth of fraud within the 12-hour span that you were there or whatever it is. I don't. But the entire thing was, hey, we want to look at this community. We're going to get some attention off of this. If there's legitimate fraud, we're going to shine light on it. But we have to make an enticing video. And the best way to do it is to just go after the people the Trump administration was already going after, right? But this is the gentleman with two brain cells that MAGA is lauding and praising right now. And he's being exposed. People have are attacking him for exposing lies or exposing holes in the story that he painted. He posted it up on the internet for people to look at, critique, and poke holes through, right? Anyway, that's been the story. That's what's happening over in Minnesota. Rest in peace to that lady, man. I can't say it enough times. This was not justified. It's being investigated by the FBI, and it's being investigated by a more local authority over in Minnesota. I forgot what it's called. And from what I understand, the FBI isn't necessarily cooperating. They're not giving all of the files over to that local board. So it seems that this is going to be a federal investigation, not a state. The state, they're not collaborating with the state. That's what it is. But we'll see what ends up happening, right? It's black and white, right? Either it was justified or it was unjustified. And based on the video that we saw, I'm calling balls and strikes, and I'm saying, no, I don't believe that it was. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Greenland. Greenland is the source or the next person up on the Summer Jam screen. That's a early 2000s Summer Jam reference from Jay-Z dissing, I believe it was Prodigy. Some hip hop stuff, if you're not aware. So the Trump administration, they came in talking about all of these countries that they wanted to basically steal from, right? He was talking about Canada, kept antagonizing them, saying that he was going to make them the 51st state, kept referring to the prime minister over there as governor such and such, whatever his name is. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't necessarily matter what his name is. It's just the fact that Trump has been trying to amp up the rhetoric against all of these different people, all of these different countries. So he started off doing that with Canada. Then he said, oh, we're going to need Greenland. The talks kind of died down. They started doing all this talk about Venezuela. And he's like, oh, this is an easier target. If I just say that they're running an extraordinary amount of drugs into the U.S., nobody's going to care if we invade Venezuela and take out Nicolas Maduro, whether that be, executing him or bringing him back to the U.S. That's what Trump thought. They go down there, the military does an operation, they take Maduro, they bring him back up here. Trump immediately, after they've been saying that it was about drugs for months, they say, oh, well, now we're going to ship the oil companies down there and they're going to get the oil and we're going to share it with the Venezuelan people because we want to make them rich like they used to be. We want to help their economy. We want to help their people. People on Fox News are buying the lie. I'm not buying the lie. Most people are not buying the lie. But there is a small group of MAGA loyalists that will run with that narrative. So then Trump says, okay, we did this successful operation in Greenland. A couple people gave some backlash, but we haven't really, kicked up any waters. Nobody's really doing too much. So what does he do next? He says, okay, we'll start bringing up this talk about Greenland again. We may or may not do some military action against Greenland and take it. Well, that's not going over so well. Greenland belongs to Denmark. Denmark is part of NATO. So I believe they've had France, the UK, a bunch of different European countries. They're not feeling it, right? They're not liking the talk of the U.S. potentially invading or commandeering somebody's entire country. Trump and his administration, they have imperialist pursuits, and they're like, hey, we're going to go to Venezuela and get the oil. We're going to go to Greenland and get the minerals. And with their pretext, they keep saying, oh, it's just because they have all of these Trump, God damn, what am I talking about? China and Russia, they are posing an imminent threat to Greenland. So we have to protect it. And the only way to do that is to take it. Obviously, people are not buying that lie either, right? They want the minerals, 100%. From what I understand, there's, because of global warming, the ice is melting. There's going to be more minerals and more places to build, more places to explore. And Trump wants to be the first one to have dibs on that because we are $40 trillion in debt. We're $40 trillion in debt. Nobody has a plan to reverse that. It's only more spending. It's only digging us deeper into a hole. So Trump is like, why fix America? Why fix the holes in America? We can just patch them with other countries, right? This is what he's doing. It's very obvious and on the nose. It's not, Trump, he's up there in age. He's not shying away from doing the very obvious imperialist pursuits. He's like, we want it and we'll take it. It is what it is. That seems to be the way that he is communicating about all of this stuff. Now, let's play this clip about J.D. Vance. He's been mostly absent from the news, but he does an interview with Fox News and they ask him, hey, how was taking Venezuela? And we're going to get back to Greenland, right? All of this matters. They asked him, how was taking Venezuela part of America first? Let's see what J.D. Vance has to say.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Taking out a dictator in Venezuela, how does that help the average American?
Well, a few things, Jesse. First of all, what it means is we're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela, which is...
We're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela. We want the incredible natural resources of... Oh, I didn't even play that. That wasn't up on the screen. We want the incredible natural resources of Greenland as well, the minerals, right? So a gentleman that is a Trump loyalist, Stephen Miller, he gets up on, I believe it was Fox News, or I believe he was interviewing with Jake Tapper, actually. And he basically says, hey, we are going to go to war with Greenland and we're going to use military might and we don't care what anybody else says. And this is our agenda and we can do what we want because we have the strongest military. We have the most money. We can kick anybody's ass. We can probably kick anybody's ass. I'm not going to lie and pretend like the U.S. military is not what it is. The question is, should we? The answer is fuck no. We're $40 trillion in debt. We should mind our business. We got problems here. People here that live on the street. People here that need SNAP benefits, 42 million Americans. I talk about this almost every stream because I was talking to somebody recently. They said America is a gold-plated third world country. I don't necessarily think that I like that statement, but the devil is in the details. So Stephen Miller gets on this interview with Jake Tapper and says that we'll do whatever the hell we want. This is a Republican senator, right? This is the GOP Senator Tom Tillis. Listen to what he has to say in response to what the Trump administration loyalists say in the message that they're putting into the president's ear. This is the response.
Mr. Miller said that the U.S. government, obviously, Greenland should be part of the U.S. That is absurd. I've got a couple of buddies that call me cranky. You know what makes me cranky? Stupid. What makes me cranky is when people don't do their homework. What makes me cranky is when we tarnish the extraordinary execution of a mission I fully support in Venezuela by turning around and making insane comments about how it is our right to have territory owned by the Kingdom of Denmark.
So real quick, this is why it's important, but this is why it would have been important for people like Tom Tillis, who said, I supported Venezuela. This is why it's important that you speak out before these things happen, because you've already given them the green light to say, okay, well, we don't need Congress's authority to go get Venezuela. So why would they feel the need to talk to Congress about going to get Greenland or going to Cuba or going to Nicaragua or seizing the Russian oil tanker that was leaving Venezuela either today or yesterday? They don't feel the need to talk to Congress because you have repeatedly ceded your power to whatever the Trump administration wants to do, whatever the executive branch wants to do, whatever the people that are advising him want to do or they want to put into his ear. You guys are repeatedly giving him the green light over and over and over and over. So why would they feel like this is going to be any different? You say, oh, this is a NATO ally. We have a tremendous alliance with them. Yeah, but they want the minerals, just like they wanted the oil. So you're going to sit down and you're going to shut the fuck up, and they're going to start patching the holes that are in America's $40 trillion worth of debt with other countries. We're going to take them, we're going to occupy them, and they're asking for $500 billion to increase the DOD budget, right? That's what Trump is asking for. We're going to talk about that in a second, but this is what they're asking for. So people like Tom Tillis, you're a little too late, right? You're a day late and a dollar short, as my old science teacher used to say.
Folks, amateur hour is over. You don't speak on behalf of this U.S. Senator or the Congress. You can say it may be the position of the President of the United States that Greenland should be a part of the United States, but it's not the position of this government because we are a co-equal branch. And if that were to come to pass, there would be a vote on the floor to make it real.
And then you guys are going to kiss Trump and his administration's ass and pass it anyway. You might fight a little bit, disagree a little bit, but then you're going to turn around and give them everything that they want. So this is all theatrics.
Not the surreal.
He's right, but it's all theatrics.
Sort of environment that some deputy chief of staff thinks was cute to say on TV. So you want to get me back to thanking the president for all the good things he's doing? Then give him good advice.
Yep. So that was what the GOP Senator Tom Tillis had to say. But does it matter? Does it really, really, really matter? Probably not, because turn around and listen to what Mike Johnson has to say. He's softballing it. He doesn't have the backbone that Tom Tillis did to say that, hey, Stephen Miller, don't go on the news and act as if you can invade Greenland unilaterally. Mike Johnson doesn't have any of that backbone, but he's never had much of a backbone at all. Check out what his statement is.
We're going to go, does that mean we're going to go send troops into Greenland and take it over? No. I mean, they only had, 40, 50,000 people there. This is not a thing, okay? Did Marco say something like that? I think he did. I mean, it was over a 2-hour meeting in the Gang of Eight, and I think he did make a comment, but I think he did it with a smile. He was trying.
Oh, we're just joking. Oh, don't you guys see? It's just a ruse. We're not actually going to invade Greenland. We just want to give them a little bit of a scare. We're friends, right? No, you don't make jokes like that. What if I just say, oh, I'm going to break into my neighbor's house? Oh, I'm just joking. Don't arrest me. You know, I don't have any conspiracy to commit not armed robbery. I don't have any conspiracy to commit robbery. Like, what are you talking about? Mike Johnson is such a bitch. Anyway, let me show you this last thing. This is actually part of what I was going to talk about with Mom Donnie. But let me just show you this statement from Trump. Because while they're talking about Venezuela, while they're talking about Greenland, Cuba, Nicaragua, all of these different places, Colombia, who we said the president better be very careful. I think his name is Petro. I forgot his first name. It says, at the long and difficult negotiations with senator, congressman, secretary, and other political representatives, I had determined that for the good of our country, especially in these troubled and dangerous times, our military budget for the year 2027 should not be $1 trillion. That's 9 zeros, by the way. But rather 1.5 trillion. He wants to increase the budget by 50%. Now, look at the language he uses here. Will keep us safe and secure, regardless of the foe. I thought I saw producing an unparalleled military force and having the ability to, at the same time, pay down debt. You're going to take debt. We don't have fucking 1.5. We don't have additional $500 billion in tax money to cover what you're asking for, right? So how are we going to pay down debt? Oh, we're going to go steal the wealth from other countries, right? Obviously, he wants to bolster what the military is doing. And this has been, we've been inching along this trail for a long time. When you change the name from Department of Defense to Department of War, you lose the element of propaganda of what the Department of Defense does. Does it defend? Yeah, it does. There's some of that. But also it's a name to throw you off of the fact that we also go after our interests. We were going after our interests before we invaded Venezuela, before we started talking about Greenland. Past presidents have also gone after certain interests in certain parts of the world, right? But when you have a name like Department of Defense, you can say, oh, well, we're defending freedom. We're defending democracy. We're defending our homeland, whatever it is. When you change it to Department of War, the entire veil of hey, this is for defense is gone. P. Hegseth has repeatedly said, oh, we're going to essentially, we're going to ramp up what we're doing as a military. We're not going to be shackled by rules of use of force, right? And then Trump says, hey, we need a stronger military because if we're going to take Venezuela, if we're going to take Greenland, we got to be able to hold it and defend it. We need more money, more troops, more weapons, more missiles, more everything. This is the obvious play. So you have to speak up before this stuff happens. Tom Tillis, Mike Johnson, don't treat it like, oh, well, I'm okay with this thing that you did that you didn't get approval for, but I'm going to cry about this other thing that you did that you didn't get approval for, or this other thing you want to do that you're not seeking approval for. Mike Johnson, you can't have a spine made of fucking jello and say, oh, well, they're just talking about invading our allies. It's not that big of a deal, right, guys? It's not that big of a deal. Oh, you're actually going to invade them. Well, let me put a spin on it. This is what Mike Johnson will do if it happens. He'll actually put a spin on it and say that it's going to be a good thing. That's what he's going to do. And then he's going to get a pat on his head because he looks like fucking Moral Oral from Adult Swim back in the day. That's what he's going to do. Anyway, let's move on. So this third topic that I want to talk about, and I need some water. I need some more water. I've been jabbing my jaws. So this third thing that I wanted to talk about was Mom Donnie, right? The guy comes in, he says that he has all of these dreams, all these aspirations about what he wants to do over in New York City. He's not the governor. He's the mayor of New York City. That's his purview. That's his that's the thing. That's the area that he has influence on. So he has all these ideas saying what he's going to do. And one of those things was universal childcare. I believe he said up till 6. And people said, oh, that'll never happen. There's no way that you're going to be able to pass an agenda like that. Well, surprise, surprise. It says big news from Governor Kathy Hochul on childcare. She will announce today that she's committing to fully fund the first 2 years of Zohran Mamdani's implementation of free preschool for 2-year-olds. There we go. We got to start somewhere, right? Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is a socialist idea. Before I had kids, I was talking to my barber. And he told me he paid $325 a week for his one kid at the time. I don't know how old she is now, but it's been a while since I've been to the barbershop. I'm bald and unshaved today, but I am bald. But he said he paid $325 a week for his kid to go to daycare, right? Imagine somebody that is working minimum wage, that does want to have a family, that can't afford a house because they're being bought up left and right, and the prices are so high, and mortgage rates are so high. How is that person supposed to afford childcare? How is that person supposed to afford to have a family and have a decent life? Or are they supposed to spend every waking moment working in order to serve corporations? Well, Elon Musk almost has $700 billion. Do you think he's stressing about childcare? No. But is he getting tax loopholes, and is he finding out how to circumvent paying any sort of taxes? 100%. So I think it's about time. I know people say that, it's socialism if you have nice things from the government after paying into the government. But I think it's about high time that the people of New York, they've elected somebody that said that this was on their agenda, that they wanted to help them out and give them some sort of relief so that they can focus on other things, whether that be working, whether that be saving, whether that be starting a family, right? This is going to give them a little bit of that relief. And to a lot of people's dismay, they said that it wasn't going to happen. And we're starting, right? It's just a little ember, but all you need is a little bit of a flame, and then you can throw gas on it later, right? Not saying that, I'm not going to get into it. I like this idea. So it says Governor Hochul's State of the State investments. I don't like that name. Will commit to delivering affordable childcare for nearly 100,000 more kids. It'll make pre-K truly universal statewide. Partner with New York City to launch the new Mayor's Signature Care 2 program and finally realize the promise of universal 3K access in New York City. It'll support other counties in building out new child care pilots that offer high-quality, affordable care to families regardless of income, and expand child care subsidies to tens of thousands of additional families. I like this. I like this 100%. Now, where I'm going to disagree is we've recently had the situation over in Minnesota, right? I don't think that Nick Shirley's work was spotless, but what I am concerned about is people that are going to try to do fraud, right? You had the PPP loans, right, for fraud. This is what people do. Just like they had the Nigerian print scam back in the day, if people saw an opportunity to make money at the expense of others, they will do it. Something like this, it's new, it's very popular. They're going to want to get people enrolled and childcare facilities enrolled. It's going to be ripe for the fraud that Nick Shirley claimed was going on over in Minnesota. So I would like to see, even though I'm not a New York City resident or New York at all, I would like to see that there are proper restraints on this. There's certain criteria that make sure that the businesses and the people that are doing it are legitimate and not getting any undue funds, right? For whatever this program does, however they distribute the money for the kids. That is my concern, but as long as they work that out and it's strict enough to actually fund legitimate childcare facilities, I'm all with it. And I'm happy for the people of New York that are getting what they voted for, right? It's not taking 20 years. It's not taking 5 years. Zohran Mamdani has been mayor for what? 8 days? This is his 8th day. The dude has already said that he's going to establish a rent board where people can come and talk about the complaints that they have with their units and report basically slumlords. He went and paved what was supposedly like a hazardous spot somewhere at the end of a bridge over in New York. He's getting to business, right? He's getting to fucking business. It's beautiful. This is what we need across the entire country. Not Trump's plan to say, oh, well, we're going to give you 50-year mortgages. We don't want that, right? We want to afford a house. We don't want 50-year mortgages. We don't want you to have a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget. Where is it at? Here we go. A $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget while you're telling us, oh, well, you just paid 3 times what the house would be worth when you bought it. But we need $500 billion additional dollars so we can start invading all these countries. No can do, Mr. Trump. No can do. So this is J.D. Vance. He's, J.D. Vance used to be a Democrat. Here's him admitting that he actually does like Zohran Mamdani. Let's check this out.
You live in New York. He's a threat to you, I'd say.
He sure is. But politically,
is he politically a threat? I mean,
got
look,
some traction.
You know, I actually really admired some of his messaging because he focused not on the woke crazy stuff. He wasn't running on white people shouldn't own property. He was running on bread and butter issues, which is what I want politicians to focus on. Even if you disagree with their solutions, I would love it if the debate among Democrats and Republicans was, how do we deliver prosperity to the American people?
See, the issue with that, while I agree with the sentiment, right, the issue is J.D. Vance is one of the people that stokes the flames of division repeatedly. He pours gasoline on it and fans the flames in order to denigrate people on the left, calls them violent, calls them radical. He's echoing Trump, right? He's going for the 2028 nomination, so maybe over time he starts to clean up his image and clean up his language. But he admitted in his clip, like, I actually like Mamdani. He has some good ideas. Maybe not the implementation, right? Like, I can disagree with some things that Zohran Mamdani, the way he wants to implement them as well. But J.D. Vance, who is a wishy-washy type of figure, admits that, hey, sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day. So he likes Mamdani in my book, just like Trump likes him, right? You meet the guy, you see what he's doing, you see that he's getting after it, and you can't help but smile, right? This is what politics is supposed to be about. Instead of always trying to kick your opponents back in, it's about actually serving the community and the people that you are supposed to represent, prioritizing the issues that you were elected on, not prioritizing yourself and your career and your own interests and insider trading that happens over in Congress, that's run rampant over in Congress. It's about prioritizing the agenda that you were elected on. And even J.D. Vance, who was a Democrat, then a MAGA loyalist, and now he's a Mamdani fan. Just can't get away from him. All right, so here, this is the $1.5 trillion that Trump is asking for in 2027. All right, what is this? While I know what this is. So while Zohran is over here proposing universal child care in New York, Governor Hochul is signing off on that for, a piece of the population that Zohran wanted to cover. I believe it said 2-year-olds. While J.D. Vance is admitting that he actually does like Zohran Mamdani a little bit, he has some good ideas. This is what Trump has to say. While he's asking for $1.5 trillion of your tax money in order to fund the military, this is what he has to say about your health care. He doesn't give a shit if you get sick or if you die. He just wants your money because he wants Venezuela and he wants Greenland and Cuba and Nicaragua and Colombia. This is what the president has to say.
But one thing I've learned a lot about healthcare. I found healthcare sort of like not of tremendous interest, but it was very important. And
the president has admitted that he's just learning about healthcare, right? When he was telling you, oh no, you don't need these ACA subsidies that are going to help you and make sure that your healthcare is affordable. When he was saying affordability is a hoax, this is the difference between people that are self-serving and self-interested and somebody that is looking out for the people. And we need to get back to a politics where when I say, when you're elevated and I vote for you and I cast a vote and elevate you up into the stratosphere of, whatever political realm that you serve in, that you actually fight for the agenda in which you were elected on, right? The agenda that you were elected on, that people came out and supported. And that's not what Trump is doing. He doesn't even give a shit about healthcare enough to find out about it until the last minute, right? And only because he wants to repeal what's happening with the ACA subsidies. He didn't even know in enough detail to make a conscious decision, a conscious effort. He didn't even make a conscious effort to make a knowledgeable decision about it. This is the difference between what people think of you. Anyway, this has been the show. That's all I've got to say. You guys let me know what you think. If you liked the episode, let me know. If you thought it was horrible, you can also let me know that. Here's the hat. Here's my bald head. If you would like to buy one, they are always linked on the channel. The weather's going to be breaking soon. And you're not going to be wearing beanies all the days of the week. Soon you're going to need to let your hair breathe a little bit. We have some mesh in the back. It's a one size fits all. It's a snapback. So if you like one, there's a product link either in the description of this video or on the product link on the page. But until next time, don't add to the population. Don't take away from the population. I will see you soon. Peace.